The morning after my brother's graduation party, while my parents were still asleep down the hall, and the house smelled like leftover cake and someone spilled beer, I opened my banking app to transfer money for my security deposit. $41,217. Gone. I sat on the edge of the bathtub in the upstairs bathroom. The one with the broken towel ring my dad had been meaning to fix for 3 years, and I read the number again. 0. Not a rounding error, not a pending hold. 0. I had built that account over 6 years of night shifts, skipped vacations and packing my lunch single day. It was supposed to be my down payment. My way out. My first thing that was entirely mine. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there on the cold porcelain edge and thought, I know exactly who did this. Growing up, I was the one who made sense. That's not me being arrogant. It's just the role I ended up in. The way some kids end up being the funny one or the athletic one. I was the one who brought home straight A's, who remembered to mail the rent check when my parents forgot, who stayed calm during the arguments that rattled the walls every few months when my dad's business ideas fell apart again. My brother was different. Not bad, not cruel, just untethered. He floated through life on charm and last-minute saves. Crashed a car at 19 and talked his way into only paying half the deductible. Borrowed money from our grandmother and paid back half of it, 3 years late, and somehow made her feel grateful. He had a way of making you feel like the unreasonable one for keeping track. Wyke, I loved him. I want to be clear about that, because what I'm about to tell you is not a story about a monster. It's a story about someone I trusted, which is worse. I moved out at 22, the week after I got my job at the clinic. Medical billing, not glamorous but steady. I rented a room from a woman named Mrs. Actually, I'll just call her my landlady. A retired school teacher who kept a garden and didn't ask too many questions. I made a budget. I stuck to it. I started a savings account that I told no one about for the first 2 years. By the time I was 26, I had $41,000 saved. I know the exact number because I checked it constantly, the way you check on something you worked very hard to grow. My plan was to buy a small house, nothing fancy, maybe 2 bedrooms somewhere 40 minutes outside the city, and have a place that no one could take from me. No landlord, no lease, no permission required. I hadn't told my parents about the savings. I'd learned by then that telling my parents about money was like standing near an open window in a rainstorm. It just got wet. But then my brother graduated. He'd taken 6 years to finish a 4-year degree, which fine. People take different paths. But the graduation party my parents threw was enormous. Rented tables in the backyard, catered food, a photo booth with props, 2 kegs. My mother called me 3 weeks before to ask if I could help with a few costs. And I said yes to $200 for flowers and a grocery run. That was my first mistake, not the money, the word yes. The week after the party, my mother sat down with me at the kitchen table. She had coffee. She had the look she gets when she's been rehearsing something. Soft eyes, careful hands. She said my brother had gotten himself into a situation. I asked what kind. She said he'd borrowed money from someone, not a bank, someone, and the repayment was due before he could start his new job. She said it wasn't a huge amount. She said the family needed to pull together. She said it would only be for a few weeks, until he got his first paycheck. I asked how much. She said 11,000. I said no. She said she understood. She said she wasn't asking me to give it. She said she just needed my account information, so she could move some money around between their accounts and mine temporarily. Something about a transfer limit, something about her bank flagging large withdrawals. Something that sounded almost technical enough to be real. I said I didn't think that was a good idea. She looked at me like I had said something unkind. Not hurt, exactly. More like disappointed that I'd made her have to push. She said, "We're not going to steal from you, you know that, right? You know we're your family." I did know that. Or I thought I did. Or I wanted to know it badly enough that I let it override the thing in my stomach that had been clenching since she first sat down. I said okay. 1 transfer, the amount she said. Temporary. I gave her my login. I want to pause here because I can already hear what some of you are thinking. And look, I've thought it too. About 100 times since then. I was 27 years old. I had a college degree. I worked in healthcare administration. I knew what fraud was. I knew what my family was. But here's the thing nobody tells you about being the responsible one in a family that isn't. You spend your whole life being the proof that it's possible to do better. And somewhere along the way, that turns into a belief, a desperate, unexamined belief, that if you just keep doing better, eventually the people around you will too. You don't give your mother your login because you're stupid. You give it to her because you've been hoping, for 27 years, that this time she'll be different. That's not stupidity. That's grief with bad timing. I gave her access on a Thursday. By Sunday morning, the account was empty. Not 11,000. Not the amount she said. Not a temporary transfer that would be returned by paycheck. All of it. $41,217. I called her from the bathroom floor. I had slid down off the tub at some point without noticing. She answered on the second ring, which surprised me. I had expected voicemail. I had expected the particular cowardice of someone who knows they've done something wrong. Instead, she answered. Bright. Like it was a normal Sunday. I told her I was looking at my account. There was a pause. Not long, 2 seconds, maybe 3. Then she said, "We needed a little more than we thought. But you're young, you'll earn it back, you have time." I have replayed that sentence approximately 4,000 times since that morning. You're young, you'll earn it back, you have time. Said in the tone of someone explaining something obvious. Said like she was doing me a favor by not being apologetic about it. I said, that was my house. She said, you just have to save again. I said, that was 6 years. She said, sweetheart, your brother was in real trouble. You don't know what it's like to be in that kind of trouble. You've always been so careful. She said careful the way some people say boring. I hung up, not dramatically. I just pressed the red button and sat there on the tile, and looked at the broken towel ring on the wall, and thought about the woman who invented it. Someone invented the towel ring. Someone thought, here is a practical thing, it will hold a towel, it will be useful. And then my dad said he'd fix it 3 years ago and never did, and somehow the woman who invented the towel ring still had to live with that outcome. I don't know why I thought about that, but I did. I called the bank first. They were thorough and kind and ultimately unhelpful, because I had voluntarily shared my credentials, which meant the transaction didn't meet the threshold for fraud they could act on directly. The woman on the phone told me I could file a police report. She said it gently, like she'd said it before to other people who looked like me. People who'd given their passwords to the wrong someone. I filed a police report that afternoon. Still in yesterday's clothes, still with my hair from the party. The officer who took my statement was patient. He asked me twice if I was sure I wanted to file it against a family member. I said yes both times. He wrote it down without editorializing, which I appreciated more than I could say. Then I called a lawyer, not because I knew what I was doing. I had never called a lawyer in my life, but because there was a woman at work who'd handled a landlord dispute and she gave me a name. I left a voicemail. I said I needed to talk to someone about a situation involving my family and a large sum of money. I said it the way you might describe a minor car accident, detached and factual, because the alternative was crying on a stranger's voicemail and I had decided I wasn't going to do that. I went home, not my parents' home, my apartment. I sat at my kitchen table and I made a list, not a listies, a list of facts, account number, date of last known legitimate balance, date the money was transferred, amount, who had login access, when I gave it to them and why. Lists help me, they always have. When things fall apart, I make a list, and the list becomes the ground under my feet until I can find better ground. My aunt called that evening. My mother's sister, older by 4 years, the one who has always functioned as a kind of ambassador between whatever my mother has done and the rest of the family. She said she'd heard there had been a misunderstanding. I said I didn't think $41,000 qualified as a misunderstanding. She said my mother felt terrible. She said my brother was in a very bad place. She said the family was hoping I could find some compassion. I told her I had filed a police report. The silence on the other end of that call was extraordinary. Like I had said something in a language she didn't speak. Then she said, "You're going to put your own mother in jail over money?" I said, "I'm going to pursue legal avenues to recover money that was taken from my account without my consent. What happens after that isn't up to me." She hung up. My cousin texted me 20 minutes later. "Just, seriously?" Then my dad called, and I let it go to voicemail and his message was 4 minutes long and I have never listened to it. I know what's in it. I've known my father long enough to know what's in a 4-minute voicemail from him, when he's angry and scared and trying to sound like the reasonable one. I don't need to hear it. What I needed that night was to eat something. So I made eggs. Scrambled with too much butter, the way my college roommate taught me. I ate them standing at the counter and I looked out the window at the parking lot and I thought about the house I wasn't going to buy, the yard I'd imagined. The kitchen with the window over the sink where I was going to put a small plant. I let myself be sad about it, for exactly as long as it took to eat the eggs. Then I washed the pan and went to bed. The lawyer called back the next morning. Her name was something I won't say because she's a private person, but she was calm and precise, and she did not once make me feel like I'd been naive. She said the situation was complicated because of the shared credential issue, but not impossible. She said civil recovery was worth pursuing. She said the police report was smart. She said, "Did you document the conversation where she told you the amount and the purpose?" I had not. I had texts from the week before that referenced the favor and helping with the loan situation, but nothing explicit. She said, "That's okay. It's something," and she said it in a way that made it feel true. I ended up in a process that took 8 months. I won't detail every step because honestly some of it is still ongoing and some of it I'm not allowed to discuss. But what I can say is this. My family did not come together to make it right. My mother made one payment, $3,000, at the insistence of her own attorney, to demonstrate good faith. My brother, who had a job now and was living in a new apartment and had, from what I could tell on social media, recently been to a baseball game and a music festival, did not contribute anything. The remaining $38,000 is in a civil judgment. Whether I collect it is a different question. My lawyer is honest with me about the odds. I think about that sometimes. The gap between a judgment and money. Between being right and being okay. What surprised me most, in the months after, was not the money. I mean, it was the money. Obviously, 6 years and $41,000 is not a small thing to absorb, but what I didn't expect was how light I felt once I stopped trying to manage everyone else's feelings about what I'd done. My aunt stopped speaking to me. My cousin group chat went quiet. My mother called twice and I answered once, and the call lasted 3 minutes because she spent it asking me how I could do this to her, and I found I had nothing useful to say to that question. My dad and I have a fragile, surface level contact. We text about neutral things, the weather, a sports team he follows. I think he is ashamed of what happened and cannot find the language for it, and I have decided I am not going to help him find it. My brother and I have not spoken. People ask me if that's hard, and I want to answer honestly. It's not as hard as I expected, not because I stopped loving him. I don't think I did, but because I realized, somewhere around month 3 of watching him post concert photos, while I was eating lentil soup for the 4th night in a row to rebuild my savings, that love and accountability are not opposites. You can love someone and still require them to be responsible for what they did. Those two things do not cancel each other out. I rebuilt my savings account with a different bank. I did not tell my family which one. I did not tell my family anything about my finances, my goals, or my timeline. I told my mother the last time she asked that I was managing fine, and that was the whole truth and also none of her business. I'm telling you this story not because I want sympathy. Though if you've been here, if you have people in your life who look at what you've built and see a resource instead of a person, you already know what it feels like, and I'm sorry. But because I spent a long time feeling like the wrong one. Like I was the problem for not letting it go. For filing the report. For not finding a way to be compassionate enough, or flexible enough, or family enough, to absorb the loss, and move on and keep showing up for Sunday dinners. And what I want to say to that version of me, and maybe to you, if you're sitting in that same place, is this: you are not the one who made this hard. It was made hard the moment someone looked at 6 years of your work, and decided it belonged to them because they needed it more. You didn't make it a legal matter, they did. The moment they took it, it became a legal matter. You just caught up to that reality. I still want a house. I'm 3 years out now and my savings are at 19,000, which is not where I was, but it's real and it's mine, and no one has the login. Some mornings I wake up before my alarm and I make coffee, and I sit by the window in my apartment. My apartment, the one I pay for myself, the one where I've lived alone for 2 years now and where the towel rings all work, and I feel something I don't have a perfect word for. Quiet, solid, like the floor under me is actually floor. I know what I'm building toward, I know how to build it, and this time, I'm not telling anyone until there's a key in my hand and a door that opens only for me.